Hi, I'm Chanel. People on the island are invited to help raise money for Hospice Isle of Man. Michael Bellis was diagnosed with a rare brain tumour at the age of 27. He passed on earlier this year. His friends Natalie Kinraid and Carl Hardy are part of a team planning a walk, run or jog event next week to raise funds for the charity.
So we've got a jog, run or walk event that is planned for the 19th of July, Wednesday the 19th of July at 5:45 at the Bottleneck car park. And the essence of the event is to bring together Michael's friends of a friend, family members, anybody that's touched by somebody that's either been impacted by a brain tumour, anybody that wants to support the hospice. We'd like to bring everybody together and have it as a family event where you can jog, walk, run, you can bring prams, you can bring scooters, you can bring the dog. And this will be the first of many events that we would like to raise. We'd like to fundraise for the hospice in memory of Michael.
I think this is the start, though, of other events that, as a group, friendship group, we want to do in the future. So, for example, there's a group of us that have all signed up to do the end to end in September. So we're doing fundraising again for hospice and again in Michael's name. And there'll be other stuff that we've got in the pipeline that we're thinking about doing.
Can you tell me about Michael? Can you share a little bit of his journey and tell me about him?
God, where to start? So I guess how I know Michael was I was at Ballacameen High School, and Michael used to knock around. He and his twin brother Luke, who sort of came as a pair, and were inseparable, hung around and knocked around with my brother Craig. And so they all started knocking around the house like little brothers, and annoying little brothers most of the time as well, I should add. And we'd have a kick around, play football. And then, one day they just walked into my local pub, Quids Inn, where I used to hang around with my mates, and they all walked in. Pretty sure they were underage. And we couldn't get rid of them after that. We just become really, really good mates. And I just like what to say about Michael. He was just a really special boy, Michael. He just had a really lovely way about him. He was a really sort of kind soul, and when I say kind, he was he just talked to everybody like they were the same. Kind in terms of generosity as well. We had when we were younger and we used to go out and we were all scraping to pull money together. If he had it, he'd just give you half of it. He was just I kind of just had this really infectious sort of laugh and a giggle, and he was just always so positive. Michael, he, even at the end, he just managed to always see the positive. He didn't complain. I often think about when he was younger before his operation. I was talking to people after his funeral, and I was thinking about the best way to describe him. And the best way to describe him, I think, was he was a bit like Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. You just see him bouncing around, chatting to people, and just really kind of energetic. He loved his sport, so Luke, my brother, me, there's a group of our friends all used to play footy together for the police. And Michael was a very good footballer. He played first team, he played midfield, and if you ask anybody, he was what he lacked in size, he sort of made up in strength. He was really, a great player. My memories of Michael are just nothing but positive, really. Whenever I was with him, I just laughed all the time and just had fun. And even in the difficult times, he always found a way of just lightening the mood, I think, is probably the best way to say it.
And he was diagnosed at the age of 27, and he managed to get some help, I think, in France.
Basically been diagnosed, 27 years, and the NHS has been given pretty grim sort of prognosis. He was only given a few years to live. But just Michael being Michael just did not accept that. He just refused to accept it, and he basically went on a I'd say it was a mission really to educate himself about. So his type of tumour is called an astrocytoma, if I pronounce that right. It was, I think, a grade 4, which is really like, really, really strong, and I think if he'd just accepted that, he'd have been long gone. Instead, actually, what he did is he went around, I mean, all over the world, to America, he and his brother went out there and saw specialist advice out there, Harley Street. I'd actually went to him to an appointment, and he asked me to come in. I wasn't going to, but I did, and I was just overwhelmed by how much he knew. And I think the consultant that he spoke to was also a bit taken aback about how well Michael was informed about his condition. Anyway, in the end, he managed to find somebody in the south of France that would carry out, and had indeed carried out, that type of operation successfully a number of times. And yeah, basically off he went. And again, just around that time, I think another way to describe Michael is stoic. He's just so strong and strong-willed, and just, yeah, off he went. And yeah, they had a successful operation in the sense it took removed quite a lot of the tumor and extended his life basically. And rather than say 2 or 3 years, or I think 5 years is the most he was given, Michael's story is one of success in a lot of ways, because he managed to live for 15 years. So something to be said in that.
Yeah, like I met Michael about 17 years ago through my husband. He also hangs around with Carl and like the wider group, the friendship group. And really, from the moment that I met Michael, like I would just say that like my word for him would be brave. So I remember meeting him, and he was going through. So he used to work in an office, and then he like changed his career path in his like early 20s and wanted to become a plumber. And I remember thinking at the time then, like, God, that's really brave. That's really brave to do that and make that decision. And then he became a plumber. And I remember him then getting his first house and going around his house with him. And like, he managed to do that. And I thought at the time, right, that's really brave. Then he got his diagnosis, and like Carl said, he didn't give up. He wanted to understand it and find a treatment plan that would prolong his life. And again, I thought, well, that's really brave. He's dealing with this head on, and he's not shying away from the fact that he's a very poorly person. And then I remember like it was yesterday when he went off for his operation in the south of France. And again, I just couldn't believe how brave he was, that actually, you're going to have this operation in the hope that it's going to prolong your life and you're going to get this best outcome. But there was a real chance that it might have not gone that way, and he could have, his life could have potentially ended when he had a few more years. And I just remember that thinking at the time, God, he's so brave. And he came back. And, throughout that 15 years, there was times when there was a bit of uncertainty, and his health would dip. And every time that we would see Michael or he'd come to our house for tea, I would just think like, wow, like what a superstar he is. He's just an inspiration. So kind of like when I knew that our friendship group wanted to start these fundraising events and wanted to give back to the hospice, because Michael was able to do what he wanted to do and was to have his final days at home, I just immediately wanted to do this fundraising event, because I've been involved in these before where Donna Whaley has supported them. And, as an absolute minimum, that's exactly what Michael, his friends and his family deserve, for us all to come together and kind of, walk along the prom, just thinking of him for that half an hour that it may take.
How has hospice helped?
So Michael, I mentioned about he's very strong-willed. He just knew that, I think from the start, that when he eventually, had to go, that he wanted to do that at home, sort of surrounded by his family, which is exactly what happened. And I think, without hospice, that just would not have been possible. So I spent a bit of time with Michael in his final days, where I was just aware that they were coming in, and I was never around at the time, but the sense that you got from the family, Michael's family, was that they were just so, it wasn't just a job. They weren't coming in. They were so personable and lovely. And and treated Michael with like just such respect at the end and dignity, and they were just they were wonderful, really. And you know, I know Michael wanted to say thank you to them, and as a group of friends, we want to help do that in Michael's name. So there's a couple of kind of objectives that you know, I think in my mind we want to do with this Chanel. And the first is really obvious, is to say thank you to Hospice. And we've spoken to Hospice, we've got their support, and they've been amazing as well there. So we want to say thank you. We want to raise some money to repay them in some small way. That's the first objective. The second objective is really just to kind of raise awareness. So Michael's kind of story is a story of, you know, an otherwise like ordinary lad that did, I think, a really extraordinary thing. You know, he didn't just take the prognosis that he was given. He went about, you know, his own fight and survived a lot longer than he should have done. Yeah, and I think if there's a second objective, it's just to raise awareness to that, because there might be just one other person that's in Michael's shoes that listens and hears Michael's story and thinks, hang on a second, I can do something about this. And if that was to happen, I think that would be like just, yeah, really, really kind of wonderful.
Is there a Just Giving page, or how can people find a link on where to donate?
Yeah, so there's a Just Giving page that, Carl, you've set up for the end-to-end, isn't there?
Yeah, so we've set up a Just Giving page. So Tulsa, Michael's sister, and I have basically set up a page for the end-to-end. People can go and donate on. Yeah, and we'd sort of set about a target to saying, well, look, if we could get £1,000, that would seem like a sensible number. And we sort of sailed past that quite quickly, just because everyone's just so generous. And yeah, the Manx community is just like really supportive, I think. And so we were quite overwhelmed by that. So yeah, there is a Just Giving page. Natalie, I don't know if you set up a page for your event.
Yeah, we haven't for the event, really. The way that it's worked in the past with Donna Whaley's events is that most people either, you know, come along with their £5, or that because they're a client of Donna's, they'll transfer to Donna, and then at the end of the event that she'll bring it together, and then we'll just make the payment to Hospice. So for the 19th of July, for anybody that's interested, suggested donation is £5 per family. Please bring cash on the day, or if you need a bank transfer, then we can, provide those details.
Is there anything else you guys would like to add or you'd like to say?
No, other than, anybody listening, if you can come along on, Wednesday, the 19th of July at 5:45, we would love to see you there.
When you die twice. And the first time is obvious when you pass, but the second time is the last time that someone mentions your name. And if there was a third objective of all of this, I think it's just to make sure that Michael's like remembered and he's celebrated, and that people know about his story. And I think what we would like to do is just make sure that he's never forgotten. He's a really special lad.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Little Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.